Morning, good afternoon. My name is Matt. I am the VP of the Kanban product here at TopLeft, and I want to welcome everybody who's joined our webinar today. You know, this we don't intend for this to be real long. We want to we did this once before. We want to make it more of a habit to maybe do it every month, but have a short time of teaching on a certain topic related to Kanban and to MSPs, and then have a time where we give updates because we're working hard on the product and things surrounding, not just the application, but all sorts of things surrounding the product that can help you as an MSP, and also give you just a chance to jump on and answer questions. You can ask your questions, and we also have some. Would love to hear from you, certain things too. So yeah, that's what we plan to do. So we'll get started. So this is going to be about the 3 boards that every MSP team should have. Actually, they're a little different depending on the what type of team we're thinking about. So the reason we're talking about this is because it's not, if you've used TopLeft Kanban for a long time, then you're probably really, you got everything figured out and you know what you need for your own team. But that's not how everybody starts out. When you are new here, it may not be clear. What are the recommendations for what sorts of Kanban boards is normal to have for certain types of teams. So that's why we want to talk about that and make sure that you're all feeling familiar with that and to get you a good start, especially if you're new here. So let's talk about this. What should service teams have? Because I think, as you know, you can have any number of Kanban boards. There's no licensing restriction or anything in terms of the number of boards that you can have. So we need to want to make sure that you have a good idea about which ones are valuable and what kind of patterns people have developed over time. So for service teams, you're going to have 2 to 3 boards. One is for your use for your dispatcher and also for your meetings. If you have something like a daily huddle, that's going to be a member swim lane board. And so, like, I'm not even going to talk about what sort of columns you should have. That's a whole nother topic. As you know, when you've built out your boards, you choose your filters, which determine which tickets and tasks and whatnot actually appear on your Kanban board. And then you set up your columns, which define what's the workflow as the work moves through the pipeline in your team. And that's actually not the topic of what we're going to be talking about here. What we're talking about is which boards do you actually need, regardless of how they're actually the details of how they're set up. So you're going to have a member swim lane board, and the reason that you're going to have that for the dispatch and the meetings is because the dispatcher is almost always concerned about like who's busy and who's not busy. Who can I send more work to? Because you might have one team member who's got 10 things in progress versus one who's got 2 things in progress. And so obviously you have something that's kind of more urgent. You better send it to the person who doesn't have so much in progress, so that it just gets handled faster. And also for meetings, typically you're going to have your folks reporting on the things that they're responsible for. So showing it grouped by person usually makes a lot of sense. So the example there is, we do have an example board here. So this is an example of a board showing help desk tickets and doing it in, this is the member swim lane. So we can see here, we've set up our filters in a certain way, we've set up our columns in a certain way, but we're grouping them here by who's assigned to the ticket. So, first swim lane is actually tickets that don't have anybody assigned. And that can be normal for certain parts of your process, like, when new tickets, when they come in brand new from the customer, however those come in. Typically they're not going to be assigned to anybody. So this is normal. Same thing with kind of a ready. If this is, a triage process or dispatch kind of moves it from new to ready. Depending on your workflow, it may also be normal to not have anybody assigned. But once they get to in progress, it's unusual to have them unassigned. So you're going to want to take a pick. You might notice problems with your workflows here, and it makes it really obvious. And then we have swim lanes for all of your different members here. Terry is an example, Joseph. So it makes it really clear who's responsible for everything from the which is what the dispatcher needs to know, as well as this is useful if you do any sort of meeting where members are going to be reporting on their work, like especially in terms of reporting on tickets that have red on them because they're violating one of the thresholds you've set up. So that's one of the useful boards. The technicians' kind of day-to-day work, they don't really want to work in a swim lane board. So let me explain this sort of board that we're going to have for them. So yes, engineers don't want to work out of this because there's, we're looking at everybody else's work and unassigned stuff. So they're not really concerned with that. It's just a lot of noise. So what we're going to do there is we're actually going to have a board that has no swim lanes. Now this can be a little overwhelming just to look at it in these sorts of terms here. Like, we got 17 tickets as an example in the in progress column. So it's kind of hard to understand what's actually going on here. It's a bit too much, but actually you don't need to use the board like this. In fact, it could be that you have a board that has no swim lanes at all, but nobody ever uses it just exactly like this. Your normal use case would be to apply a filter here. So this is what the engineers would do. You're going to click filters up there. You're going to add an additional filter so that we see only tickets that kind of apply to whatever filter we're set up. In particular, you're going to select themselves as the technician here. So actually, I'm logged in here as Peter Thompson. So I can just say, hey, show me only my tickets. Click apply. And now this is really useful for Peter, the technician, because now all of these tickets here, Peter is assigned to. You can see that by the indicator on the card here. Peter's going to be on every single one of these. So now there's no noise here. Everything here, Peter's responsible for it in some way. So this is the second useful board that MSPs are going to have. And by the way, I wanted to point out, when you apply this filter, you notice we actually have, we changed the URL up here, which means that anytime you come back to this URL, it's already got that filter applied. And that means you can bookmark this page. And that's typically what technicians are going to do. They're going to bookmark this page, or what I do is I make mine a pinned tab. So that's pretty useful. You can always come back here and immediately see the filter applied. Now, a third board that some service teams might choose to use is something for the secondary field. So, in terms of considering your work, frequently, like who's assigned is important. So you're going to have the member swim lane board, but let's add there could be some other field here on this work that is pretty important. So a common one is priority. So let me show you that. If I select swim lane priority here, and then we get it, and it's looking like this. And by the way, I'm just using our ConnectWise example here. Autotask, so far, everything that I've described has the exact same capabilities in Autotask mode. So this is a priority swim lane. We see at the top here, priority 1. We see, so it makes it really clear what's the emergency response stuff. Priority 2, quick response. Priority 3, it's all laid out there. Priority 4 and 5 and so on. So that makes that really clear. It's also really useful for a dispatcher so that they don't, so that sort of stuff isn't hidden, and it makes it really clear for them. So I'll just set this back to no swim lane so I don't forget. So that's what is going to be, that's pretty typical for a service team. So if you're new to Kanban, that would be a great start. If you do exactly that, you're going to have have a really good head start. Now, in terms of project teams, because it's definitely a little bit different, not totally different. We do have some of the similar boards here. So in terms of, again, planning and meetings, frequently for, in project land, you are thinking of things in a couple of different ways. So kind of maybe really two main ways. One is thinking in terms of like, what work do we need to do? When you're thinking of that, you're actually not yet considering like who's actually going to do this work. But you're thinking in terms of the projects and your commitments to your customers and like predecessors and like how does this project actually need to get done? And you're going to worry about who's actually doing that work a little bit later. So when you're in kind of that mode, what work do we need to do? You're going to be you're going to be using the project swim lane board, and your filters are going to be set up totally different. And in fact, if so, in ConnectWise, you can show service and project work on the same board because everything's tickets. On Autotask, it's actually going to be a separate type of board. You're going to make a task board instead of a ticket board to show your project work. In either case, though, you're going to be looking at it by the project swim lane. So here we are actually grouping all these tickets by their project. So each swim lane represents one project, and within there you can see all of the tickets that are for that project. So here we see a swim lane for Azure migration for this company, some details about the dates and so on. And then within that you can see the details of all the tickets or Autotask tasks, and what status they're in, how long they've been in that status, when was their last time entry, and so on. And then we see all the details for this project. Now, neither ConnectWise nor Autotask has any view sort of like this. They kind of always force you into thinking first about one project, and then you kind of leave that project, and then you think about the next project, which is that's not reality for a project manager at an MSP. As a project manager at an MSP, you're running many smaller, small to medium-sized projects. It's not like your PM who just has one big project that you're focusing on right now. So this is really important to be able to see all of these tickets from all of these projects, because sometimes projects conflict, and you can't do everything you want to do in 1 week, for example. You just don't have the people to do it. So you have to make choices and say, okay, this week we're going to focus on this project, get that done. Next week we work on this other project, and so that changes how these things are laid out. What things get queued up in the ready column, what stuff you want to see in progress, and whatnot. So seeing a board like this that shows you the details of all of these projects all at once, all in one view, really, really important, and it'll save you a lot of time. So that's a keyboard for a project manager. Now, frequently, once you've decided what work needs to get done, then you kind of shift your mindset and you actually say, okay, of all my folks who are available, who can actually do this work? And I mean, obviously, that's a topic that sometimes that needs to come into play, even at this stage. What work do we need to do? But a lot of time that can kind of be a second concern. And so for when you're in that sort of mode, thinking about that, then we also go back to the same member swim lane that is also useful for the service board. So with that, we get this board like this. So we're showing the same project tickets, same columns and so on, but now we're back to the member swim lane, showing who's assigned to these tickets, including the no resource assigned swim lane, swim lanes for Terry and Joseph and Nicole and so on. So that makes it really clear too, who's responsible for what. If things are getting delayed, because it's been in progress for a week instead of just a couple of days. And in this mode, you can also prioritize work for everyone. So just by dragging and dropping, same as you might do for a service in a service environment as well. So if you came in here, you saw, okay, this bar on the left, it represents the priority. Not that it's normal to use priority for a project environment, but from time to time, maybe you do get something in your project and it turns out that this is urgent. And then you might find it like this, where the indication here for Terry is to work, that, and this one beside it is the second one, third, fourth priority, and you find, okay, why is this emergency priority one is fourth in the list? It shouldn't be like that. It should be up here, the first one. In fact, if he doesn't take this within the next hour, I have to tell him about it. So it definitely shouldn't be down here. So you can use that as a useful feature too to make sure that all of these tickets are in the right order so that they get done according to what you've committed for your projects. Yeah, so that's the member swim lane board, and same thing with the technicians. The technicians also, they don't want to work at a board like this. That's a lot of things on this board that are not relevant to them, obviously. So they, again, they may use a board like this, project tickets, and the project relevant columns and so on, but apply themselves as a filter. So actually, this one does have project, the project swim lane. Okay, and that was, I was going to get to that second, but here we are. So this is a useful view. You can kind of go either way for the board that the engineers want to use. You can have the project, oh, this is actually the phase one. Let me just change that. So you could do this a couple ways. You could have a board like this. I mean, obviously this is kind of overwhelming. It's got tickets everywhere, but again, you know, you apply your filter here. And now we see something like this is reasonable for Peter to work from. Now it shows him exactly what he's responsible for and what the status is, how much is actually in progress, and so on. So that's a fine one. Same thing, you can do the project by swim lane. Sorry, the swim lane by project, like this one, but still apply the filter. So this could be more useful actually if your engineers have some project management responsibilities. Then they may still want to see all their tickets, but still group them by the project. You know, if they don't have project management responsibilities and really, you know, they're just working through their queue of work that they've been assigned, then they may not need to see it like this. But if they, especially in the case where they do have some of those responsibilities, you know, like they're recognizing when things are kind of out of order, or if there's a due date, you know, they're responsible for making sure it gets done by the due date, regardless, you know, even if that means kind of delaying some other stuff, things like that, then they may still want to see it by the project, in which case this is still a good view for them. In fact, so this would be the same one that the engineer, the project manager is regularly using. They just apply themselves as a filter there, so they don't see anything that's not assigned to them. So that is pretty much the three boards that are really useful for the in the project environment. Also, there's we've added a bunch of stuff actually. I'll just give you a really quick view of this, and if and you can go to this blog post here that announces some of this stuff if you want more details. But let me just give you a quick view too, in case you missed all the announcements. So we have a new type of board where the cards are actually the projects. So these are not project tickets anymore or tasks. These cards actually represent the top level projects, and so you can track your projects through their workflows. You know, not so useful if you only have, you know, 4 or 5 projects, but for MSPs where you've got 20, 30, 40 or more projects, definitely you're gonna have a hard time keeping track of those just in ConnectWise or Autotask. So this is super useful. And you can actually zoom in here. So if I click on click on that little zoom icon there, then I go to this board, and you can kind of set it up how you can select the board that this button refers to. So you can set it up exactly how you want. But now we have a board that is referencing the different phases of that project. So we're only seeing tickets here. So now we're back to a ticket board, but we're only seeing tickets that apply to this project that I clicked on. And in fact, this is an example of another recent addition. Now we have the phase swim lane, which is new in the last 6 weeks or so. So you can actually see how these tickets are split up by the phases that you've configured in ConnectWise or Autotask. So those boards are also useful for anyone who's focusing on project stuff. Okay, so that's it for the teaching. Let me know if you can, if you want me to kind of expand on that, then you can ask a question at the end. Now let's talk about some announcements. So we have a new team member, actually not that new, it's he's been 4 or 5 months here now, Stephen Clausen. He's our sales and customer success manager. Super happy to have him here. He's done so much already in terms of helping our processes in our sales, but also customer success, which, you know, it means that maybe he's reached out to you just to see how things are going, because that's, you know, we want you to be successful with Kanban, and so that's really important. So you may hear, if you haven't heard from him yet, probably you're going to hear from him fairly soon. So we want to welcome Stephen. We, for our customers in the EU, now we can give you a GDPR data protection agreement. So if that's if that applies to you and you want to get that signed together, then let us know. Also, we accept American Express credit cards, so that means that you don't have to kind of get around that by using PayPal, which sometimes has some issues. Yeah, so we can charge your American Express directly now. Also, we have been issuing announcements. You can actually subscribe. If you go to this URL here, announcements.topleft.team, and then you can subscribe. And when we have an announcement about, well, a variety of things, kind of the bulk of it there is product updates, new things that you can do in the application. But we also do, you can see here, like we announced when American Express was available, and we announced webinars and things there too. So if you want to subscribe there, you can do that. Also pay attention, this little gray dot here, it's not always gray, sometimes it's red. If it's red, that means that there's an announcement for you. So pay attention to that, because it could be something that's really relevant to you. More announcements, especially in terms of the product, phase swim lanes. So yeah, that's new. So I showed that. Triggering, yes, data synchronization. So it used to be that, especially again, when you're a new customer and coming on board, that as you're building out your Kanban boards, you're like, oh, I need different ConnectWise boards or Autotask queues, or I want to rename my statuses for the tickets and so on. And so you'd go and do that in ConnectWise or Autotask, and then you'd come back to Kanban and you wouldn't see that change, not immediately anyway. So, and that's because, the boards and queues and statuses and things like that don't change very often. So we don't go out of our way to synchronize them very often, just to mostly to kind of ease the load on your system, because we don't need to ask about all the changes because it changes very infrequently. So we do it, I think, every 4 hours. So it could have been that you would either have to ask us to do it manually during our business hours, or just wait. And that wasn't a great experience for folks, especially new folks coming on board. So here's, if you're playing around with your statuses and things like that, and you want Kanban to know about those changes, and here's what you do as an administrator. You go admin, you do synchronize data, and you can trigger a synchronization, and it will happen within a minute or so. So you can either do, statuses, types, and categories, and all that sort of thing. If you want to do the kind of operational data, like maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a troubleshooting thing, you don't see updates to your tickets or your projects and members and things like that, which doesn't happen normally, but maybe it could. But you can select synchronize that as well. So now you can help yourself with that. We have a small change to projects. So this is a response to a customer who asked for this. So now you can show the description of your projects here in Kanban. Made during from a template. So if you've got some useful information there in the description, then you can see that without going into ConnectWise for that. Also kind of related is you can actually see a snippet of the description here when you just hover over the title. And that is actually not just for these project boards. Actually, we've done that for every type of board. Some of you have asked, can we see the initial description of a ticket? Here we can see the notes. If you click on that dialog, oh, that's for entering time. If you want to show the notes, you can do this here. And in fact, the oldest, the first note, at least in ConnectWise terms, the first note is the description. But sometimes you need a faster way to do that. So now if you just hover over the title there, if there's one, there you go. So you can see if there's a initial note or description on whatever type of record. So, tickets, tasks, even sales opportunities for ConnectWise. So you'll see that there. Also, one little improvement is for Autotask, there's now a filter for showing tickets that are showing tickets that belong to a account by a certain parent account. So if you have kind of a complex setup of your your companies and accounts and things like that, now you can show all of the tickets that are in any account that has a certain parent account. Things that are coming up soon. Project ticket and task predecessors. For those of you who are using those, to make it really clear, you've set up the predecessors properly in ConnectWise or Autotask, get a visualization of that in Kanban. So someone's already working on that. Also, this is something that has been asked for a long time, is supporting custom fields, which is ConnectWise terms. User-defined fields is the Autotask terms. So we're going to be supporting that. Initially for just showing the fields on the cards, you'll be able to select which ones you want to see on the cards, and then also using them to be able to group by the swim lanes. And that, I think, will open up a whole bunch of new use cases and interesting ways to use Kanban. So expect to see that. Won't be in September, but hopefully in early, hopefully we can make the beginning stuff available sort of middle of October-ish sort of time frame. Is kind of what we're going for. Okay, so that actually wraps up the announcements. Now I have a question for you. What do you want to hear about, especially in terms of the 15, 20 minutes of teaching at the beginning, because we like to do this regularly. So we'd love to hear about what it is that you want us to teach about in that sort of shorter teaching time. You can, well, one thing, you can chat right now. If you already know, I'd be happy to take your suggestions right now. Otherwise, send them over to my email here, matt@topleft.team, and that would be terrific to hear from you. Get some feedback about what to share coming up. Now your questions and answers. So put them in the chat, and if you, let's see. If you would like to come on and actually talk to me, and you'll appear for the other attendees as well, then you can raise your hand and I'll see if I can make you a panelist. You might appear there and then we can actually have a discussion. So yeah, go ahead and raise your hand and I can do that. Otherwise, you just toss your questions in the chat and I'll get those to chat or the actual question and answer feature here in Zoom. So I do have one question. Can you show how to add swim lanes for a project by project? I don't see how to do that in my instance. So that's a question from Brian. Brian, I don't remember, are you Autotask or ConnectWise? Don't remember off the top of my head. So I guess I'll show you both. Oh, you're ConnectWise, okay. That's great, I'll show you in ConnectWise. So, so in terms of showing tickets and then grouping them by their project, so that's what we get, where we get the project swim lane. I'll just show you here. So this is, this is an example of what we're going to get in the end. So to make a board like this, if you're you will be an administrator in your Kanban instance, so you're going to have the title here, the edit button by the title. And then we see, all the key configurations here, pretty typical things that you set up for every board, like these are mostly the options about what actual things do you want to appear on the ticket, which allows you to either have a compact ticket so you see more on the screen or more details on the tickets if that's what you need. And here is the main here's the main option that you're going to select here. Is the project swim lane, because that's what's going to change the grouping for the tickets here to be the project one. After that, you got the ticket filters. You're going to decide what which actual tickets you want to appear on the board. So the most common thing to do here would be to select your project boards in ConnectWise. That's not something that's applicable to Autotask. And then set up your columns just by giving them the names, and then you going to have a list here of the available statuses, and drag those into the appropriate columns here, so that you can reflect that tickets are going to move, from the left side of the board to the right side of the board until they're done, and then save it here. Okay, so I see, Brian, you're saying a few things. You don't have that project option in the swim lanes. So that means that maybe you're on a different kind of board. I wonder, maybe you're on a page for a different type of board. So let me show you how you're gonna create this, starting from the very beginning. So you're gonna go under your boards menu here. You can have add board. Yours may look a little different because we actually just updated this a couple of days ago, and I don't think we've pushed that out to every customer. You may have, under here, you might have choices. You might have these choices here. We got to select the right type of board here. Basically, this is asking, what are the cards? Are the cards representing tickets? Are the cards representing the projects or opportunities or activities? So you may actually have that list right here. And if you do select project, then you're not going to have project listed here. You're going to have the other things listed here. But the reason is because these, when you make this type of board, the cards are actually the projects, and so you don't need any more swim lanes like for additional project stuff. What you actually are going to get, the options that you're going to see here are grouping your projects by the manager, for example, grouping the projects by the company, by the type of project. That's useful, if you've got multiple types of projects in one ConnectWise board, for example. You have your like network migrations and your Azure upgrades, or Exchange migration or something, and you want to see those types separately, then you're going to choose that. The project team members, percentage complete, if you use that, and estimated start date. Estimated start date is kind of an interesting one, actually, because if you do fill out that field, then you'll actually get, maybe I have an example. Projects by start date. Yeah, so we get an example like this, where so these cards are representing the individual projects, and our swim lanes are kind of, it's not a calendar, but it is date based. So you can kind of see, okay, what were we hoping for in terms of when are these projects actually going to start? And one thing it does allow you to see is making sure, well, first of all, two things. One is that they're not falling behind. For example, if you have a monitoring stage here, which is kind of, the project is done and we're just kind of waiting we don't want to close it off completely yet because the customer hasn't had a lot of time to give us feedback, make sure we got it right. So it's going to stay in a monitoring stage for a little bit. It could be that there's nothing else to do. If we don't hear from the customer, then it will go to completed pretty soon. So the fact that it is in monitoring and it started back in June is not a problem. That's fine. If we saw it in progress, well, in progress it might be fine as well. But if we saw it in new, meaning it hasn't even started yet, and it's supposed to start back in June, okay, that would be a problem. So it allows you to see things like that. The other thing it allows you to see is, if you've somehow committed to starting like 4 projects in 1 week when you only normally start 1, that would be a problem. Because you would see that really easily here. You'd see 4 tickets in the new column, 4 projects in the new column all at once, compared to a few other weeks that only have 1. So it would allow you to recognize that sort of thing when it's really not, ConnectWise and Autotask doesn't give you really any reason, way to visualize that easily. Okay, well, that's all the written questions I have at the moment. And at the moment, I don't see anybody raising your hands. So that could be it, short and sweet. I'll stick around for another minute or two for anybody to raise their hand or put in a text question. Let me just check the chat. Oh, there are more questions. Hang on, they're in the chat section here. How did you set that project ticket to open the tasks of the project? When I click on my project ticket, it opens an empty board. Okay, I will show you that in a little more detail. Okay, so I think what, that's Jake asking that. Jake, I'm understanding that you're asking about clicking on this icon here. So this icon, basically you configure that to point to one of these boards here. So, you know, like this is our projects by start date board. So this is a project board. You know, the cards here are projects, and we're linking it into a ticket board. So, like for example, I was showing you, you know, these boards are showing us the actual project tasks. But by default, these boards are showing us projects. They're showing us tickets from all different projects. You know, you can configure it to not do that, but generally that's what it will be doing. Like for example, actually, let's take a look here. Swimlane by the engineer. So like as you can see, well, I'll point it out, but we got projects from, we have tickets from all different projects here. Like you can actually see that on the card here. Windows desktop upgrade. Here we got financial system implementation. So, you know, we're seeing them by the member. We got Terry here. And so Terry's working on different projects we can see from that information. So I'll just, let's say that we want, when we click on this icon here, we want to get to that other board to see who is responsible for that project. And let me show you how you do that. So I'll click edit here. And this is where you do it. So it could be that if you're not seeing that, if you're not seeing that link at all, then that's what happens when you haven't selected anything here. So if you have it like this in your configuration, then you're not going to see that zoom in icon at all. But now if we want to, when we click on that, we're going to go into the Swimlane by Engineer page, and we set it, we select that there. If you're in Autotask, you're not going to see your ticket boards here. You're only going to see your project task boards here. Then I'll just go down, we'll save it. And so now if I click here, so now we're going into this board here, Project Manager, Swimlane by Engineer. And we see any of the tickets that are on that project because we've already selected it here. Well, that's what happens when you click on that zoom in icon. Basically, all it does is it selects this filter for you automatically. And so actually we see the case that you mentioned. It opens an empty board. So what that would mean, I guess, is that this project may not have any tickets, or at least it doesn't have any that match these filters here. So it could be that the project is actually on a different, it's on a different ConnectWise board, like it's on a board that's not listed here. Or if we've filled out some of these other filters, then it doesn't match anymore because of these filters that we have applied, which means that maybe you need to deselect some of these filters. Or it could mean that you just don't have any tickets in there. Like that might be my case here, although I imagine that you know that's not the case. Anyway, I probably can't figure out exactly why. Like I suspect in our case here, it's just that it's some example data. We don't actually have any tickets for that project. So in your case, I suppose that's possible. Well, that's very easy for you to verify or not. So what's probably more likely in a real world example is that there are some filters on here that prevent this board from actually matching any of those, matching that project. One thing we could do is here, we could clear out this filter. So say project office teardown, if we just kind of clear that, now we'll get everything back. So that was called, what was it called? It was called office teardown. So if I just kind of do Control F on the page here to search, if I search here for office teardown, that doesn't appear on this page at all. So it's expected that we wouldn't see any tickets at all when we do apply that filter. Okay, let me see what other questions we have. Okay, Chris Tim asks, when is user-defined fields coming? Yeah, so I'm going to say we'll be ready to kind of begin offering it middle of next month. So that's coming up fairly soon. You know, that there is, for us, there is a little bit of risk in that because it's, you know, in a software development, sometimes there's features that you add that are, you know, we know how to do them. It's just a matter of carving out the time to do them. They're not technically risky. This one has, I would consider that it's not super risky. It's not really experimental, but there is some uncertainty in there, and we are going to have to do some experimentation, like how to design our database to store this in an efficient way. And you know, as you all know, that sort of thing, there's risk in there that it could take a day, it could take a week. Who knows? So I can only give you kind of a broader idea there, but I'd like to begin doing the initial offering of it sort of sometime in the next month. James, a guest here, has a question. Greetings, Matt. I'm currently using ConnectWise. I know TopLeft opens ConnectWise in a new tab when wanting to view more ticket details. Is it possible to configure it such that it updates the tab with ConnectWise to that of the desired ticket instead of opening a new tab every time? That's an interesting question. Yeah, so at the moment it doesn't. I suppose it's possible that might be technically possible for us to do. So at the moment the answer is no, it's not. The application is not doing that right now. But I can write that down actually, because that's something that could possibly, we could possibly do that. Now that you've asked that though, let me tell you one thing. If you haven't looked at the embedded mode, you may want to look at embedded mode for ConnectWise. So this is something that has no Autotask equivalent because you can't embed stuff within Autotask. But for ConnectWise, it is possible. So if you go in here, I'm not going to, actually, yeah, there's no reason I can't give you an example here. So look at this button here. On each board, if you go to the edit page, there's a button here that will offer to embed this in ConnectWise for you. So instead of explaining how it works, I'll just show you. So I'm going to go into our kind of sandbox here. This is our training instance, which is what our environment is connected to. And we do have a couple of embedded boards here. So you're going to get something that looks like this. You know, you have your ConnectWise Today screen, and we have configured this as an embedded tab. So this is actually loading, I mean, you can, obviously it's loading ConnectWise here, or Kanban in this tab, but I didn't have to sign in. And it's not because I am already signed in a tab here. So it would work even if I wasn't already signed in this browser, because what we're doing here is actually we're using the authentication information that ConnectWise provides to us to tell us, you know, that I'm Peter here and I'm allowed to view this board. So in this mode, opening tabs is a bit easier or faster, I should say. So you can, if you click on the title here, it will open it in a new tab. If I just do a plain old click here, and you can see it still takes a little while. It uses your regular patience that you have to give to ConnectWise. Now, what if I hold down the Shift key and click on the title here? So now we're loading it within this tab here. Now, I know that's not exactly what your question was about, but it seems relevant, so I'm just going to mention it. So that loaded fast, right? And that's because it loaded in the same tab, which means that it uses the same resources that the ConnectWise has already told the browser to use. So it opens real fast this time. And you can do whatever you need to in here. And then when you're done, you click back here, and we do go back here. And there you go, you're back on your board. So just again, that was holding down Shift and click on the title here, and it opens it up within the same tab, and it opens it up quickly. So going back here, I already showed you how you get to this dialog, and you're going to select the screen that appears on. So if you want to do ConnectWise today, that's probably a good place to start. I'd only recommend you use something else once you've kind of familiarized yourself with how it works. So you're probably going to choose ConnectWise today as the screen, and then all you do is click Save. And it's going to go and actually use the API to set that all up for you. Real easy. Although your members are going to have to, that makes it available to your members, but it doesn't actually make it show it to your members. So they do need to come in here, and they will see that. They might have to log out and log back in before they see it here. And then they can elect to display that for themselves. There are, of course, all these instructions in the knowledge base about what to do. As a further point on that, you can set it up as well to show it in a custom menu entry here. So you could have Kanban listed here, and we don't at the moment. We don't have a way to set that up manually, but sorry, we don't have a way to set that up automatically just with one click for you. But we do have the instructions here. This is explaining how to embed it in a tab, but we have the same thing here, the embed TopLeft and ConnectWise as a custom menu entry. I'll toss that in the chat here, just in case that's something you want to do. And you got to go into your setup tables for that, and then it will appear there. If there was popular demand for putting it in this way, then we could certainly make that more automated as well. Okay, so let's see if there's any new questions or folks with hands raised. Okay, yeah, I don't see anything just at the moment. I'll wait around another minute or two for any more questions. If there's nothing coming, then thanks for attending. Appreciate you spending that time with us today. And as a reminder, really do send us your topics that you'd like us to talk about. We want to make a little catalog of our own of these things that folks have asked for. So think about what questions that you've had that you'd like us to discuss that you think might be applicable to other MSPs as well. And send those over to matt@topleft.team. And if you, by the way, if there's anybody here who is not yet a customer, you don't have access into this just yet, then, and you want to see how this can work better for you, then Stephen, who I mentioned, would love to talk to you. And it's really easy. Just go to our website, topleft.team, click get a demo. And then you go to the place where you just kind of pick a time that's open in our calendar, something that works well for you, and we'll meet you there and explain exactly how Kanban can help you. Okay, folks, thanks for your time today. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.